The moment Emma's invention vanished from the stage, Cole Mercer knew someone powerful wanted his daughter erased. Standing in a ballroom full of billionaires who looked at them like dirt, watching his 7-year-old fight tears while a CEO accused her of being a fraud, he made a choice that would flip an empire upside down. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing in the world isn't money or power. It's a father who has already lost everything once and refuses to let it happen again. If you want to see how far a parent will go to protect their child, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. Cole Mercer's hands smelled like engine grease and burnt coffee. He stood in the marble lobby of the Ethereum Tower downtown, trying not to touch anything that looked expensive, which was basically everything. Chandeliers the size of his pickup truck hung from ceilings 3 stories up. Women in dresses that probably cost more than his mortgage floated past in clouds of perfume. Men in suits sharp enough to cut steel talked into earpieces about numbers Cole couldn't even picture. And there was Emma, 7 years old, clutching a cardboard box with both arms like it contained the secrets of the universe. Which, in a way, it did. "Dad, my stomach feels weird," she whispered. Cole crouched down, ignoring the way his knees popped. His daughter's brown eyes were huge behind her glasses, the frames held together with electrical tape because new ones weren't in the budget this month. "That's just nerves, kiddo. You belong here as much as anyone." "Do I?" The question hit harder than it should have. Cole looked around at the other finalists, kids in pressed shirts with parents who looked like they'd stepped out of magazine ads, private school uniforms, leather briefcases. One kid had an actual assistant carrying his project. Emma had a cardboard box and a father with grease under his fingernails. "Yeah," Cole said, and he meant it. "You do?" They'd driven 4 hours to get here, leaving at dawn in a truck that rattled every time it hit 45. Emma had been awake the whole way, practicing her presentation in the passenger seat, her voice getting higher and faster every time she started over. "What if they don't understand it?" she'd asked somewhere around mile 60. "Then you'll explain it better." "What if they think it's stupid?" "Then they're the stupid ones." That got a small smile. But now, standing in this lobby with security guards eyeing them like they might steal the furniture, Cole wasn't sure his confidence was justified. A woman in a red suit that looked painted on approached with a tablet and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Name?" "Emma Mercer," Cole said. The woman's fingers flew across the screen. Her smile faltered. "You're the—" She stopped herself. "Right. The independent entry." Cole had heard that tone before. Independent meant poor. Independent meant no corporate sponsor, no university partnership, no famous engineer parent. Independent meant a kid who built something in her garage while her dad worked double shifts at the plant. "That's us," he said. "Check-in is on the 3rd floor. You'll need these." She handed Emma a badge on a lanyard and Cole a visitor sticker. The difference wasn't subtle. They took the elevator up with 3 other families who didn't make eye contact. When the doors opened, the noise hit like a wave, hundreds of voices bouncing off glass and steel, punctuated by camera flashes and the artificial enthusiasm of corporate event coordinators. The 3rd floor had been transformed into an exhibition hall. Long tables displayed projects under professional lighting. Each station had a printed banner, a digital screen, and a presenter in business casual. Some had entire teams. Emma's station was in the back corner next to the bathrooms. There was no banner, no screen, just a folding table with a number card. Station 47. "This is us?" Emma's voice was small. Cole felt something dark and heavy settle in his chest. He'd seen the promotional materials online. This competition was supposed to be about innovation in young minds. The brochures showed diverse kids from all backgrounds. What they didn't show was that the kids with money got prime real estate by the entrance, and everyone else got shoved in the back. "This is perfect," Cole lied, helping Emma set up her box. "More space to work. Nobody crowding you." They unpacked together. Emma's invention didn't look like much. A metal cylinder about the size of a water bottle, covered in hand-soldered circuits and wrapped in electrical tape that matched her glasses. Wires sprouted from one end, connecting to a small display panel she'd built from a broken calculator. It was beautiful to Cole because he'd watched her build it, watched her stay up past bedtime sketching designs on graph paper, watched her test and fail and test again until her fingers had tiny burns from the soldering iron. Emergency energy cell, Emma said quietly, practicing. Powered by ambient electromagnetic fields. No battery required. In a crisis situation, blackout, natural disaster, anywhere the grid fails, this unit can generate enough power for essential devices, medical equipment, communication systems, emergency lights. She'd explained it to him a dozen times. Cole still didn't fully understand the science, but he understood the heart of it. Emma wanted to help people who couldn't help themselves, just like her mother would have. The thought came uninvited, the way it always did. Sarah would have been proud. She would have known what to say to calm Emma's nerves. She would have belonged in a place like this, with her engineering degree and her easy confidence. But Sarah had been gone for 3 years, and Cole was doing his best with duct tape and determination. "You're going to be amazing," he told Emma. "What if they ask questions I can't answer?" Then you say, "I don't know yet, but I'm working on it." That's what real scientists do. Emma nodded, but her hands were shaking as she arranged her notes. People started filtering past their station. Most didn't stop. A few slowed down, glanced at the homemade device, and kept walking. One woman in a blazer actually laughed. Not loud, but Cole heard it. Emma heard it too. Her shoulders hunched forward. "Hey," Cole said. "Look at me." She did. "You know what I see when I look at your invention? Something that doesn't look professional? I see something that works. That's all that matters." But as the hall filled up and the other stations started drawing crowds, Cole began to wonder if that was true. Emma's invention might be brilliant, but in a room full of glossy presentations and corporate polish, brilliant didn't always win. The opening ceremony started at 6. They were herded into a ballroom that made the lobby look modest. A stage dominated one end, flanked by screens the size of movie theaters. Round tables filled the space, each one set with more silverware than Cole owned. There was no assigned seating for finalists. The other families claimed tables near the stage. By the time Cole and Emma arrived, only the back tables remained, the ones where the waiters dumped empty trays and the speakers sounded fuzzy. Emma clutched her program with white knuckles. The lights dimmed. Music swelled, something orchestral and expensive. The screens lit up with the Ethereon Industries logo, a sleek geometric pattern that probably meant something to brand consultants. Then she walked out. Vivian Hale. Cole had seen her picture online, but photos didn't capture the way she commanded space. She moved across the stage like she owned the air itself. Tall, sharp-featured, wearing a black suit that looked like it cost more than his truck. Her dark hair was pulled back so tight it seemed aggressive. No jewelry except a watch that caught the light like a threat. The room went quiet. Not the polite quiet of an audience settling in, but the heavy quiet of people suddenly aware they were being watched by someone who could end careers with a phone call. "Good evening," Vivian said. Her voice came through the speakers clear and cold. No warmth, no welcome, just authority. "Tonight we celebrate innovation. Young minds solving problems the previous generation couldn't or wouldn't address. Ethereon Industries built its reputation on one principle. Results matter more than credentials. Execution matters more than intention. And real genius doesn't need permission to prove itself." She paused, and her eyes swept the room. For one absurd second, Cole felt like she was looking right at him. "But genius also doesn't need excuses," Vivian continued. "It doesn't need parents building projects while children sleep. It doesn't need corporate sponsors doing the hard work behind closed doors. Real innovation stands alone." The implication hung in the air like smoke. Cole felt Emma go rigid beside him. "Tonight we'll see who deserves to stand on this stage," Vivian said, "and who's just borrowing someone else's credibility." The applause was polite and nervous. Cole leaned toward Emma. "She doesn't know what you built. None of them do. You've got nothing to prove to her." But Emma wasn't listening. She was staring at the stage with an expression Cole hadn't seen since the funeral, like the ground had opened up and she was falling. The ceremony continued with speeches from executives and sponsors. A video montage played, showing last year's winners and their current success. Every kid in the video looked polished and comfortable. Every family looked like they belonged. Then came the finalist presentations. The first kid, a boy in a suit that fit perfectly, demonstrated a water purification system. It was impressive, Cole had to admit. The kid spoke confidently about osmosis and filtration, never once stumbling over the technical terms. When he finished, the applause was genuine. The second finalist presented an app that helped doctors in remote areas diagnose diseases. She had a full slide deck, professional graphics, even testimonials from medical professionals. The applause was louder. One by one, the finalists took the stage. Each presentation was polished. Each kid looked prepared. Each project had clearly been funded and supported by people who knew what they were doing. Then they called Emma's name. She stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. Cole squeezed her shoulder. "You've got this." Emma walked to the stage alone. Finalists weren't allowed to bring parents. The spotlight hit her, and suddenly the electrical tape on her glasses was very visible. So was the worn fabric of her dress. The one she'd insisted was fine, even though Cole knew it was 2 sizes too small. She reached the microphone and froze. Seconds passed. Cole watched her lips move, but no sound came out. Someone in the audience coughed. Someone else whispered. Then Emma took a breath and started. "My name is Emma Mercer, and I built an emergency energy cell that works without batteries." Her voice was quiet but steady. She explained the concept: electromagnetic field harvesting, capacitor arrays, voltage regulation. She spoke about use cases, disaster relief, remote medical clinics, areas without stable power infrastructure. Cole felt pride swelling in his chest. She was doing it. She was actually doing it. But then Emma reached the part where she was supposed to demonstrate the device. She pressed the button on her remote. Nothing happened. Emma tried again. Still nothing. She said into the microphone. "There's supposed to be a video." "Technical difficulties," someone called from backstage. Emma stood there, alone under the spotlight, holding a remote that didn't work. The silence stretched. People started checking their phones. "I can just explain it," Emma said, her voice smaller now. "The device captures ambient electromagnetic radiation from power lines, cell towers, even radio waves. It converts that energy into usable power through a series of... Does it actually work?" The voice came from somewhere in the middle of the ballroom. An older man in an expensive suit, clearly an investor or executive. "Yes," Emma said. "Have you tested it in a real emergency scenario?" "Not exactly, but so it's theoretical." "No, it works. I just haven't had access to a full-scale..." "Did you build this yourself?" Another voice, this one from a woman near the front. Emma hesitated for just a fraction of a second. "Yes. The soldering work looks very advanced for someone your age. My dad taught me how to solder, but I did all the circuit design and assembly myself." "Your father is an engineer?" "He repairs industrial equipment." The way Emma said it, defensive, almost apologetic, made Cole's hands curl into fists under the table. "I see," the woman said, and those 2 words carried a universe of implication. Vivian Hale, who had been sitting at the judge's table with her arms crossed, leaned forward into her microphone. "Miss Mercer," she said, and the room went completely silent. "Tell me about your development process. Walk me through how a 7-year-old designs a functional energy harvesting system from scratch." It wasn't a question. It was a challenge. Emma's hands were shaking now. "I started with research. I read papers online about energy collection. Then I tested different circuit designs using a simulation program. Once I found a design that worked in theory, I built a prototype using parts from old electronics. When that failed, I changed the capacitor arrangement and tried again. It took 14 prototypes before I got one that produced stable voltage." "And your father didn't assist with any of this?" "He helped me use the soldering iron safely, and he bought the parts I needed, but the design is mine." Vivian's expression didn't change. "How convenient that you have a father with technical skills. Some children don't have that advantage." The accusation was barely veiled. Cole felt heat rising in his face. Emma's voice cracked. "I know I'm lucky to have my dad, but I did the work myself." "I'm sure you believe that," Vivian said, and turned away from the microphone, dismissing Emma without another word. Emma stood on the stage for 3 more seconds that felt like hours. Then she walked back to her seat, moving like someone who'd just been punched. Cole wanted to stand up and shout at every person in the room, wanted to drag Emma out of this place and never look back. But Emma was sliding into her chair with tears threatening to spill, and his first job was holding her together. "She doesn't know anything," he whispered. Everyone thinks you did it, Emma whispered back. Everyone's wrong. But the damage was done. Cole could see it in the way people at nearby tables were whispering, glancing over. Could see it in the pitying looks from other parents who clearly thought Emma was a fraud. The presentations continued. By the time the last finalist finished, Emma had sunk so low in her chair she was barely visible. During the dinner service, which Emma didn't touch, Cole excused himself to use the bathroom. He needed a minute to get his anger under control before he said something that would make things worse. The bathroom was empty and blessedly quiet. Cole leaned against the sink and took 5 long breaths. The door opened. A woman slipped inside, glanced around nervously, then looked at Cole. "You're Emma Mercer's father?" She was young, maybe late 20s, wearing an Ethereum employee badge on a lanyard. Her eyes kept darting to the door like she was afraid someone would follow her in. "Yeah," Cole said carefully. "I'm Rachel Chen. I work in R&D. I need to talk to you, but not here. Do you have a phone?" Cole pulled out his ancient flip phone. The woman actually blinked at it. "Never mind. Listen carefully. Your daughter's invention. It's already been flagged for acquisition." "What does that mean?" "It means someone inside Ethereum wants it. They've been tracking independent submissions for months, looking for anything valuable. When something promising shows up, they make sure it doesn't win. Then they approach the creator later with a lowball offer and an NDA. If the creator refuses, they bury them with legal threats until they give up." Cole's stomach dropped. "You're saying this competition is rigged?" "I'm saying some of the executives use it as a hunting ground. They find inventions they can steal legally, or at least cheaply. And they're very good at it." "Why are you telling me this?" Rachel's hands were shaking. "Because Emma's device is different. It's not just clever, it's revolutionary. If it scales, it could power emergency systems in disaster zones, remote hospitals, anywhere the grid fails. That's worth millions in military and humanitarian contracts, maybe billions. Then why try to steal it? Why not just offer her a fair deal? Because fair doesn't maximize profit, and because once they erase her name from the patent and rebrand it as an Ethereum innovation, they control the narrative. Emma becomes a footnote. You become nothing." The bathroom doors started to open. Rachel moved fast, pressing a small USB drive into Cole's palm. "Everything's on here," she whispered. "Stolen patents, fraudulent contracts, names of every executive involved. I couldn't stay silent anymore. If you want to stop them, you need to move fast. They're announcing the winners tonight, but Emma's project is already scheduled for removal from the exhibition floor during the ceremony." Then she was gone, slipping out the door before Cole could ask anything else. He stood there holding the USB drive, his mind racing. This wasn't just about Emma losing a competition. Someone was planning to steal her work entirely, erase her contribution, take everything she'd built and claim it as their own. Cole thought about his daughter sitting in that ballroom, small and humiliated, believing she wasn't good enough. He thought about Sarah and what she would have done. Then he walked back to the ballroom with the USB drive burning a hole in his pocket. Emma was exactly where he'd left her, staring at her untouched plate. Cole sat down and squeezed her hand under the table. "I need you to trust me," he said quietly. "Can you do that?" Emma looked up, confused. "What?" "Things are about to get weird, but I need you to stay calm and trust me, okay?" "Dad, what's happening?" "I'm going to fix this." Before Emma could respond, the lights dimmed again. Vivian Hale returned to the stage holding a glass of champagne that caught the spotlight. "It's time to announce our winner," she said. The screens lit up with the top 3 finalists. Emma's face appeared on one screen, awkward and frozen mid-presentation, her expression uncertain. "Third place," Vivian announced, "goes to Emma Mercer for her emergency energy cell concept." Concept, not invention, not breakthrough. Concept. The applause was polite and brief. Emma started to stand, but Cole held her arm. "Wait," he said, "but I have to go get—" "Wait." On stage, Vivian continued. "Second place goes to Daniel Kim for his water purification system. And first place—" She paused for effect. The tension in the room was manufactured but effective. "First place goes to Marcus Brennan for his adaptive energy distribution network." The screen changed. A boy about Emma's age appeared, holding a device that looked sleek and professional. Behind him stood a man Cole recognized from the lobby, one of the investors who'd been talking about quarterly returns. Emma's face went white. "Dad, that's my design. He didn't—" "I know," Cole said. On stage, Marcus accepted the oversized check with a practiced smile. His father stood next to him, one hand on his son's shoulder, beaming for the cameras. "The adaptive network represents the future of emergency power systems," Vivian was saying. "It's versatile, scalable, and practical. Exactly the kind of innovation Ethereum seeks to develop and distribute worldwide. Congratulations, Marcus." The applause was enthusiastic now. People were standing. Cameras flashed. Emma turned to Cole with tears streaming down her face. "He stole it. They put his name on my work." "I know," Cole said again, and this time his voice was different, harder. "Stay here." "Dad, what are you—" But Cole was already moving. He walked straight toward the stage, ignoring the security guard who stepped forward to intercept him. He dodged around a waiter, cut through a group of executives, and climbed the side stairs before anyone could stop him. Vivian saw him first. Her expression shifted from confusion to annoyance to something sharper. "Sir, this is a private—" Cole pulled the USB drive from his pocket and held it up. "I need 2 minutes of your time, that's all." "Security?" Vivian said. "Wait," Cole said, louder now. The room was watching. "Before you have me removed, ask yourself why Emma Mercer's invention disappeared from the exhibition floor 30 minutes ago. Ask yourself why the winning device uses an identical circuit design to hers. Ask yourself who benefits when independent inventors get erased." Vivian's eyes narrowed. "Are you accusing this competition of fraud?" "I'm saying you should check what's on this drive before you declare a winner." The security guard grabbed Cole's arm, but Vivian held up one hand. "Wait." She stared at Cole for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she held out her hand. "Give it to me." Cole handed over the drive. Vivian turned to someone off stage, a tech coordinator. "Display this." "Now!" "Ma'am, we haven't verified—" "Now!" 30 seconds later, files started appearing on the massive screens. Email chains, contracts, patent applications with names crossed out and replaced, financial transfers, legal threats sent to previous finalists who'd refused to sell their work. The ballroom went dead silent. Cole looked out at the sea of faces and found Emma's. She was standing now, her hands pressed over her mouth. Vivian stared at the screens like she was watching her empire crumble in real time, which, in a way, she was. "How long has this been happening?" she asked, her voice dangerously quiet. Nobody answered. "How long?" A man in the front row stood up, tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit that cost more than Cole's truck. "Vivian, this is clearly a misunderstanding. If you'll allow me to explain—" "Sit down, Richard. These files could be fabricated. We need time to—" "I said sit down." Richard sat. Vivian turned to Marcus Brennan's father. "Did your son build that device?" The man's face had gone red. "We had assistance from consultants. That's not unusual. Many of these children have—" "Did your son build that device?" Silence. Vivian looked at Marcus. The boy had started crying. Then she turned to Cole, and her expression was something between fury and grudging respect. "Who gave you these files?" "Someone who got tired of watching people like you destroy kids like mine." "People like me," Vivian repeated. "You think I knew about this? Didn't you?" "No." The single word came out like a blade. "But I should have." She turned back to the audience. "This ceremony is over. The winners are void. Every patent submission from the last 5 years will be audited by an independent committee. Any executive found complicit in this fraud will be terminated and prosecuted. And someone explain to me how this happened under my leadership without my knowledge, or I will burn this entire division to the ground and rebuild it from scratch." Then she did something nobody expected. She walked across the stage to Cole. "Your daughter is Emma?" "Yes." "Is her invention real?" "Every word she told you was true." Vivian nodded slowly. "Then she deserves more than third place and an apology. She deserves—" The lights went out. Not just the stage lights. Every light in the ballroom, every light in the building. The screens went black. The microphones died. Emergency exit signs flickered and failed. total darkness. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then the screaming started. Not panic exactly, but the sharp confusion of several hundred people suddenly unable to see. Cole's first thought was Emma. He turned toward where she'd been standing, trying to orient himself in the dark. Then he saw it. A small glow. Faint, but growing brighter.
Coming from the back of the ballroom, Emma's voice cut through the chaos, high and clear. "Dad, I'm turning it on!" The emergency energy cell hummed to life with a soft electric whine. The glow intensified, not bright enough to light the whole room, but enough to see by. Enough to matter. Emma carried it forward, weaving between tables. The device cast her face in blue-white light, making her look older than 7, making her look like exactly what she was, someone who'd built something real. She reached the stage and held it up. Around the room, emergency systems started flickering back online. Exit signs glowed. Emergency lights engaged. Someone's phone rang. Cell towers were routing through backup systems, which were being powered by... Cole looked at Emma's device. It was feeding power into the building's emergency grid. Not enough to restore everything, but enough to keep critical systems running. Enough to prove, beyond any doubt, that it worked. The ballroom stayed dark, but nobody was screaming anymore. They were all staring at the 7-year-old girl holding a homemade invention that was doing what billion-dollar infrastructure couldn't. Vivian Hale stood perfectly still in the dim light, her expression unreadable. Then she started laughing. Not cruel laughter, not mocking. Something else. Bitter and amazed and maybe a little broken. "Of course," she said. "Of course it works." Emma looked up at her, still holding the device. "I told you it worked." "You did," Vivian said, "and I should have listened." She turned to face the audience, even though half of them couldn't see her anymore. "Everyone in this room just witnessed what real innovation looks like," Vivian said, her voice carrying without the microphone. Not polished presentations, not corporate backing, just a kid with an idea and the determination to make it real. That's what I built Ethereum to support. That's what we lost sight of, and that ends tonight. Somewhere in the darkness, someone started clapping. Then another person, then more. By the time the city restored power 10 minutes later, Emma Mercer had already won something bigger than first place. She'd proven that sometimes the most powerful thing in the world isn't money or influence or a CEO's approval. Sometimes it's just showing up with something true and refusing to disappear. The power didn't stay off long. By the time emergency generators kicked in and the city's grid came back online, the ballroom had transformed into something between a crime scene and a war zone. Federal investigators were already climbing the stairs. News vans were pulling up outside the building. Someone had live-streamed parts of the ceremony to social media, and the story was burning across the internet like wildfire. Cole sat in a small office on the 42nd floor with Emma pressed against his side, both of them exhausted and running on adrenaline. A woman from the Federal Trade Commission was asking questions about who'd given him the USB drive. Cole kept saying the same thing, someone who worked here, someone who wanted to do the right thing. Emma wasn't really listening. She was staring at her hands like they belonged to someone else. "I ruined it," she kept saying. "I turned on the device and I ruined everything." Cole pulled her closer. "You didn't ruin anything. You saved it. You showed everyone the truth." "But people are crying, and Mr. Marcus's dad is in trouble, and, hey, look at me." Emma did. "You did something brave tonight," Cole said. "Something that took courage. Yes, people are upset. Yes, bad people got caught, but that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is telling the truth. And you did that." The woman from the FTC was watching this exchange with an expression Cole couldn't read. After she finished her questions, she told them they could go, but not to leave the city. They'd need to give formal statements tomorrow. Cole nodded and started gathering Emma's things, which was mostly just the USB drive and the emergency energy cell, now sitting in an evidence bag, but apparently not confiscated yet. As they walked toward the elevators, a door opened ahead of them. Vivian Hale stepped out. She looked different than she had on the stage. Smaller somehow, though that didn't make sense. She was still 6 feet tall and sharp enough to cut glass. But her posture had changed. Something had shifted in her expression that made her look almost human. "Mercer," she said. Not a question. Cole felt Emma tense against his side. Bashet, yeah? I need to talk to you, both of you. My daughter needs to sleep, Cole said. I know. This will take 5 minutes. There was something in her voice that made Cole follow her instead of heading to the elevator. Maybe it was the fact that she hadn't ordered them to follow. She'd asked. Vivian Hale, CEO of a multinational corporation, had actually asked like they had a choice. Her office was on the 56th floor and looked like a museum dedicated to power. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the whole city sprawled below them, glittering in the night. The desk was so big it probably had its own zip code. The furniture looked like it came from a catalog about minimalism and intimidation. Vivian sat down without inviting them to do the same. Cole remained standing, one hand on Emma's shoulder. I spent the last hour making phone calls, Vivian said, to every executive involved in the patent theft, to the board of directors, to lawyers and investigators and the federal government. Do you know what I found out? Cole didn't answer. That I've been running a criminal operation without knowing it. That my own leadership team has been stealing from children for at least 5 years. That I built a reputation as a ruthless innovator, and that ruthlessness created a culture where this became possible. She paused, staring at her own hands like they'd betrayed her. I pride myself on knowing everything that happens in my company, on being in control, and I missed this entirely. You should have had better oversight, Cole said. Not unkindly, but not gently either. Yes, Vivian agreed. I should have. She looked up at Emma. Your device is extraordinary. I mean that as a technical assessment, not a compliment. It's genuinely revolutionary. Emergency power systems have been trying to solve ambient energy harvesting for 20 years. Your circuit design is elegant. Your execution is flawless for a prototype. Even the materials you sourced, there's an efficiency to it that suggests either luck or real intuition about physics. Emma didn't know what to say. Cole could feel her shifting uncomfortably. I'm going to make you an offer, Vivian continued. Not tonight, because you're exhausted. Not this week, because you need to process what happened. But soon. I want to fund the development of your technology. I want to help you scale it. I want to do it ethically, with your name on every patent, with full transparency about how it works and what we're building. Why would you do that? Cole asked. Because when I was 7 years old, I built something too. A simple circuit board that controlled a fan. My father was an engineer and he encouraged me. But he was also ruthless about credit. He took my design and made it look like his own. I never knew if that made me angry or just accepted it as how things worked. Vivian's jaw tightened. I built Ethereon to prove I didn't need anyone, that I could succeed on my own terms. And in the process, I became the kind of person who would crush a 7-year-old to protect my image. Cole felt something shift in his chest. Not sympathy exactly, but recognition. The weight of legacy. The way mistakes compound. The way trying to fix one thing can break everything else. I'm not asking for your forgiveness, Vivian said. I'm asking for a chance to do this right. For your daughter. Cole looked down at Emma. She was staring at Vivian with an expression of pure confusion, like she was trying to solve an equation that didn't make sense. Can I think about it? Cole asked. Take as long as you need. But understand this. There are other people interested in your technology. Other corporations. Governments, probably. Once word gets out, and it will get out because this story is going to spread like fire, there will be offers. Most of them will be exploitative. Most of them will try to control you. I'm telling you now what I'm willing to offer, so you know what ethical looks like when you see it. She stood and walked to the window, dismissing them without saying so. Cole guided Emma back toward the elevators. They were almost there when Vivian's voice stopped them. Your daughter asked me earlier if she belonged here, Vivian said, still facing the window. She does. More than anyone I've ever met. I hope you both know that. They left the building at 11 p.m. and drove home in silence. Emma fell asleep before they made it out of the city, her head against the window, her breathing evening out into the rhythm of genuine rest. Cole drove through the dark, one hand on the steering wheel and the other resting on the emergency energy cell sitting in the passenger seat. He'd won the lottery once, years ago, before Emma was born, back when he and Sarah were young and stupid about money. They'd won $3,000, and Sarah had wanted to invest it in something. Cole had wanted to pay off some debt. They'd argued about it for a week, and then Sarah had gotten pregnant, and then they'd decided to just use it to take a trip to the beach. That had been the last vacation they'd taken before Sarah got sick. Cole thought about that memory now, about how little $3,000 had turned out to be, about how it had seemed like the entire world when they were holding the ticket. He thought about Vivian Hale offering to fund Emma's invention, about the federal investigators asking questions, about Marcus Brennan's father's face when the files appeared on the screen. His phone rang. Cole glanced at it. Rachel Chen. He'd almost forgotten about her, about the woman who'd done the right thing even when it cost her everything. He let it ring. He'd call her back when they got home. The drive took 40 minutes. Cole lived in a neighborhood that hadn't been gentrified yet, in a house that had been built in the 1980s and hadn't seen major repairs since then. There was a sagging porch and a carport that leaked, and a backyard full of equipment Cole was fixing or planning to fix. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. He carried Emma inside and put her to bed still wearing her dress. He'd make her shower in the morning. For now, she needed sleep more than anything. Cole sat on her bed for a while, watching her breathe. This was the part of fatherhood nobody talked about. The quiet moments where you realized how much you had to lose, how every decision you made could reshape her entire life, how one evening at a corporate gala could change everything. His phone rang again. Rachel. This time he answered. Are you okay? She asked immediately. Yeah, Emma's asleep. It's been a long night. I heard they arrested 3 executives, that Vivian's shutting down the entire division. How did you hear that? It just happened. I have friends in the building, people who knew what was happening, people who didn't have the courage to do what I did. Rachel's voice was shaking slightly. I'm trying to figure out what comes next for me. I blew up my career tonight. I don't know if I should be proud or terrified. Both, Cole said. You should feel both things. It means you did something real. Vivian wants to talk to me about staying on, about helping her rebuild the ethics protocols. I don't know if I trust her, but I also don't know if it matters. At least she's trying. At least she acknowledged that something was broken. Cole thought about Vivian's face when she looked at Emma, about the way she'd admitted her own mistakes without making excuses. I think you should hear what she has to say. After he hung up with Rachel, Cole went to the kitchen and made coffee he didn't really want. He sat at the table with the emergency energy cell in front of him, turning it over in his hands. The technology was real. The design was brilliant. But it was also just a machine. What mattered was what people chose to do with it, who they chose to hurt, who they chose to help. His email pinged. Cole checked it out of habit, expecting junk. It was from Vivian's lawyers. They'd drawn up a preliminary agreement for Emma's technology, a partnership structure that gave her full IP ownership, guaranteed percentage of profits, and a development timeline that let her stay in school. The compensation alone, just as a signing bonus, was more than Cole would make in 5 years. Cole read through it 3 times, looking for the trap. Every contract had one. There was always something hidden in the language, some way the powerful protected themselves at the expense of the vulnerable. He couldn't find it. The next morning, Emma woke up in her dress and immediately remembered everything. She ran into Cole's room asking questions so fast he could barely follow. Did they really arrest people? Is Marcus in trouble? Am I in trouble? Can they take away my invention? Is the device okay? Did it break when the power went out? Cole let her talk, then brought her to the kitchen and showed her the email from Vivian's lawyers. Emma read it while eating cereal, her eyes getting wider and wider. That can't be real, she said finally. It's real. But what's the trick? There might not be one. Everyone said there would be a trick. Not always, Cole said, though he understood why she'd think that. They'd lived their entire lives knowing that anything too good to be true usually was. Sometimes people just do the right thing.
Do you think she's really sorry, like actually sorry, or just sorry she got caught? Cole thought about that question carefully. I think she's sorry she didn't know. I think that's eating at her because she prides herself on knowing everything. As for whether she would have stopped it if she'd known from the beginning, I don't know. We might not ever know that. Emma nodded slowly, taking this in. What do you want to do? What do you want to do? I want to keep building things. I want to make my invention actually work really well, not just work okay. I want to help people. Emma paused, then added quietly, I want to prove that I did it myself, that it wasn't just my dad helping, even though some people might still think that. You already proved that, Cole said. Did I? The device proved it, in front of everyone. It worked because you made it work. That's not something people can take away from you. Emma thought about this. Then she asked, Can we call her? They spent the next hour on a video call with Vivian, who answered her personal phone and washed her phone immediately. Like she'd been waiting for them to call. She was in her office again, still wearing yesterday's clothes, and she looked like she hadn't slept. I want to understand the full development process, Vivian said to Emma. Not for legal reasons, because I want to see how you solved the problems you solved. Emma spent 40 minutes explaining her design choices, her failures, the moment she realized that the capacitor arrangement was limiting her voltage output and how she'd solved it by reverse engineering a salvaged power supply. Vivian asked intelligent questions, challenged some of Emma's design choices, suggested modifications that made Emma pause and think, treated her like a fellow engineer instead of a child. When they finished, Vivian leaned back in her chair and studied Emma with an expression Cole had learned meant she was making a decision. I'm going to give you something, Vivian said. Not money. Not yet. A resource. I'm going to let you spend 10 hours a week in our advanced fabrication lab. You'll work with our best materials engineers. They'll help you build a production-ready prototype. No strings attached. If you like it, we can talk about next steps. If you hate it, you can walk away. Really? Emma asked. Really? You're not going to find a better fabrication lab in this state. You deserve access to the tools that will let your ideas become reality. Cole felt something tight in his chest loosen slightly. This wasn't a trap. This was exactly what Vivian had said it was. A chance. An honest one. When would I start? Emma asked. Whenever you're ready. Next week? The week after? Next week, Emma said immediately. After the call ended, Emma looked at Cole with an expression of wonder. Did that actually happen? Yeah, it did. Is she going to try to take the invention again? I don't think so, but we're going to read the contract with the lawyer before we sign anything. Is she still bad? Cole thought about how to answer that. She was complicit in something bad. That doesn't make her a bad person necessarily, but it makes her responsible for what happened. The question is what she does with that responsibility. What if she just forgets? What if she goes back to normal? Then we'll know, and we'll deal with it then. But Cole didn't think Vivian would go back to normal. Something had broken in her the night before, some armor or defense mechanism that made her different. He didn't know if different meant better. He didn't know if it meant she'd hold to this commitment in 6 months or a year or 5 years. What he did know was that Emma deserved a chance to discover that for herself. The next week was a blur of statements to federal investigators, interviews with journalists who kept trying to get Emma to cry on camera, and emails from lawyers and other corporations offering increasingly absurd amounts of money for Emma's technology. Cole turned them all down. On Monday morning, he drove Emma to Ethereon Industries for the first time since the gala. They went to a different entrance, one in the back of the building that led to the fabrication labs. Rachel Chen met them there, thinner than before, with dark circles under her eyes that suggested she'd been working around the clock. They've got a workspace set up for you, Rachel said to Emma, and I'll be your primary contact. Anything you need, anything anyone tries to tell you that doesn't feel right, you come find me. Are you okay? Emma asked. Rachel smiled, and it was genuine. I'm better than I was. I'm doing something that matters. That counts for a lot. The fabrication lab was enormous, a warehouse the size of a football field filled with equipment Cole didn't have names for. 3D printers, laser cutters, soldering stations, a climate-controlled area for precision work, shelves lined with materials, specialized metals, polymers, semiconductors, components salvaged from aerospace projects. Emma looked around like she'd stepped into another universe. All of this is available to you, Rachel said. The equipment, the materials, consultants if you need them. You're the priority project right now. Everyone knows it, and everyone's excited to help. A woman in her 50s approached them. Her name was Dr. Margaret Okonkwo, and she was the head of advanced fabrication.
She spent an hour with Emma going through her designs, suggesting materials that would improve efficiency, proposing methodologies for scaling the prototype to production level. Cole watched from the edge of the lab, sipping mediocre coffee from a vending machine, trying to process how quickly things had changed. 2 weeks ago, Emma was unknown. 1 week ago, she'd won third place in a competition that was rigged against her. Today, she was being consulted like her ideas mattered. Because they did matter. They always had. By the end of the week, Emma had begun building a new version of her device using materials she'd only dreamed of having access to. Carbon fiber casings, premium capacitors, resistors with tolerances that allowed for precision she'd never achieved with salvaged components. Cole watched her work with a mixture of pride and something else, a kind of helplessness. He'd taught her how to solder and how to think about circuits. He'd bought her components when he could afford them. He'd cheered her on when she was frustrated. But this next phase of her development was something he couldn't provide, and he found himself grateful for that. Grateful that Vivian, for whatever flawed reasons, was opening doors Emma needed opened. One evening, near the end of Emma's second week in the lab, Vivian appeared. She was wearing jeans and a company polo shirt instead of her usual armor of a suit. She looked tired and more human than Cole had ever seen her. "How's it going?" she asked Emma. "Really good. Dr. Okonkwo thinks I can have a production prototype ready in 4 weeks." "That's impressive. You're learning fast." "Because I want to. Because now I can actually try my ideas instead of just thinking about them." Vivian nodded. Then she looked at Cole. "Can we talk? Just for a minute?" Cole followed her out to the hallway, where it was quieter. Vivian leaned against the wall and closed her eyes for a second. 17 people got arrested yesterday, she said, including the COO and the entire acquisitions division. Another 12 are under investigation. We're looking at civil liability that's probably going to exceed $300 million. "Is your company going to survive?" Cole asked. "Yes. Barely. But we're going to be smaller. We're going to be less profitable. We're going to have to rebuild our entire culture from scratch." Vivian opened her eyes. "And honestly, we deserve that." "Your employees didn't do anything." "No, but they work for a company that created an environment where this became possible. That's going to take years to change." Cole wasn't sure why Vivian was telling him this. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing. I just wanted you to know that this has real consequences. That I'm not just apologizing and moving on. This is going to hurt." "Your company should hurt," Cole said. "You built something that crushed people to protect profit." "I know," Vivian said. "I'm finally starting to understand that." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Vivian said, "I'm shutting down the youth competition." "The whole thing?" "We're building something new, an incubation program for young inventors from underrepresented communities. Real funding, real mentorship, real protection for intellectual property. No corporate profit motive. We're partnering with universities and nonprofits. It's going to cost us millions." "Why?" Cole asked. "Because Emma deserved better. Because a lot of kids deserve better. Because I'm finally starting to understand that some things are more important than being the most powerful person in the room." Vivian paused. "That last part is still hard for me, but I'm working on it." Emma came out to the hallway before Cole could respond. "Can I ask you something?" she said to Vivian. "Of course." "Why did you think my dad did the work instead of me?" Vivian was quiet for a long moment. "Because I've learned to assume the worst in people. Because it's easier to dismiss someone than to believe in them. Because when I was 7, my father took credit for my work, and I learned that's just how the world works." She looked directly at Emma. "I was wrong. You deserve better. You all deserve better." That night, driving home, Emma fell asleep clutching her backpack with her new designs, her laptop, her notes. Cole drove through the dark with his daughter sleeping beside him, thinking about power and redemption and whether people could really change, or if they just got better at hiding who they actually were. He didn't have an answer, but he was going to watch closely enough to find out. 3 weeks into Emma's work at the Ethereon fabrication lab, Cole started noticing things he couldn't explain. It began with small stuff. A black sedan parked on their street that hadn't been there before. A voicemail from an unknown number. No message, just breathing and a click. An email from a law firm he'd never heard of requesting a preliminary conversation regarding intellectual property concerns. Cole deleted the email, ignored the voicemail, and told himself the sedan probably belonged to a neighbor's visitor. Then Emma came home from the lab one Thursday afternoon looking pale. "Someone was watching me today," she said. Cole put down the wrench he'd been using on a compressor unit and gave her his full attention. "Watching you how?" "A man in a suit. He wasn't wearing an Ethereum badge. He stood near the observation deck above the lab for about an hour, writing things on his phone. When Dr. Okonkwo asked security about him, they said he had a visitor pass, but nobody could tell her who approved it." "Did he talk to you?" "No, he just watched. It was creepy." Cole called Rachel that evening. "I'll look into it," Rachel said. "We've tightened security a lot since the arrests, but there are still gaps. Some of the former executives had relationships with outside contractors and military procurement people. It's possible someone slipped through." "Military procurement?" Rachel hesitated. "I probably shouldn't have said that." Rachel. "Okay. Look, before the scandal broke, Emma's technology had already been flagged for military evaluation. Emergency power systems are a major defense priority. Combat zones, disaster response, anywhere conventional infrastructure fails. The contracts that were being negotiated were worth over $200 million. Those contracts were voided when the arrests happened. The contracts were voided. The interest wasn't. The military doesn't stop wanting something just because the company selling it got caught committing fraud. If anything, now they're more motivated. Because now they know the technology actually works. Emma proved that during the blackout. And now the IP situation is uncertain enough that other players might try to acquire it independently. Cole sat down heavily. "You're telling me the military is trying to get to my daughter. I'm telling you that powerful people want her technology, and not all of them are going to ask nicely." He didn't sleep well that night. Lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle, thinking about what it meant to have something that powerful people wanted. He'd spent his entire adult life being invisible, fixing equipment nobody else wanted to fix, living in a house nobody envied, raising a daughter nobody noticed. Now the whole world was noticing. The next morning, Cole drove Emma to the lab himself instead of letting Rachel pick her up. He walked her inside, checked the security desk, made sure her badge worked, and then sat in the lobby for 20 minutes watching the entrance. Nobody suspicious came in. He was being paranoid, he knew that, but paranoia felt different when your 7-year-old was the target. Vivian called him that afternoon. "I heard about the unauthorized visitor," she said. "I've upgraded security protocols for the fabrication wing. Badge access only, no exceptions, no visitor passes without my personal approval." "Thank you." "Don't thank me. I should have done it sooner. I'm also assigning a security detail to Emma when she's in the building. She's 7. She's going to notice guards following her around. They'll be discreet. She notices everything. That's kind of her whole thing." There was a pause. "Would it help if I talked to her about it?" Cole considered this. Vivian wasn't exactly warm and fuzzy, but she was direct, and Emma responded to directness better than reassurance. "Yeah, actually it might." Vivian came down to the lab the next day. Cole watched from the observation deck as she sat beside Emma at her workstation, both of them bent over a circuit board like equals. "Some people are interested in your invention," Vivian said. "Important people, government people. They want it for military applications." "Like what?" Emma asked. "Emergency power for soldiers in the field, disaster relief, communications in areas where infrastructure has been destroyed." "That sounds good, though. Why is my dad worried?" "Because these people don't always operate ethically. They want the technology, and they'd prefer to control it. That means controlling you, or more specifically, controlling who owns your intellectual property." Emma frowned. "But I own it. You said so." "You do. And we've filed the patents in your name. But patents can be challenged. Contracts can be manipulated. People with enough money and influence can make legal arguments that would take years to resolve. During that time, they could potentially use your technology without your permission. That's not fair." "No, it's not." "So what do we do?" Vivian leaned back and crossed her arms. "We make your position unassailable. We file internationally. We build a legal framework so strong that challenging it would cost more than it's worth. We make you so visible that taking your invention becomes a public relations disaster for anyone who tries. How do you make a 7-year-old visible? Vivian almost smiled. Almost. By letting the world see what you've built on your terms. That conversation led to something Cole hadn't anticipated, a press conference. Vivian's communications team organized it for the following week. Emma would demonstrate her production prototype, now significantly more advanced than the original, in front of select journalists and industry analysts. The event would be live-streamed. Emma would answer questions. Cole would be present, but not speaking. He hated everything about it. "She's a child," he told Vivian the night before the event. They were standing in the empty ballroom, the same one where everything had fallen apart weeks earlier. Workers were setting up chairs and testing the sound system. "I know she's a child. Children shouldn't be on display like products. She's not on display. She's establishing credibility. There's a difference." "Is there? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're using my daughter to rehabilitate your company's image." Vivian's expression hardened. "Is that what you think?" "I think it's a possibility you should consider." "I have considered it every day. I've asked myself whether I'm helping Emma because it's the right thing to do or because her story makes Ethereon look better. And the honest answer is that I don't know anymore. Both things might be true, but the alternative is doing nothing. And doing nothing means leaving her exposed to exactly the kind of people who were watching her from the observation deck last week." Cole rubbed his face with both hands. He was exhausted. He'd been exhausted for weeks. Running the repair business during the day, managing the legal situation at night, trying to keep Emma's life normal when nothing about their lives was normal anymore. "What if she freezes up?" he asked. "Like she did at the gala." "She won't." "You don't know that." "You're right, I don't. But I've watched her in the lab for 3 weeks. She's not the same girl who walked into this building with a cardboard box. She's confident now. She knows her work is real, and she knows other people know it too. That changes a person." "She's 7. She's extraordinary. And extraordinary people face extraordinary challenges. You can't protect her from that. You can only prepare her for it." Cole wanted to argue, but Vivian was right, and he knew it. The world was coming for Emma whether he liked it or not. The question wasn't whether she'd face it. It was whether she'd face it ready or unprepared. "Fine," he said, "but I'm standing right there. And if anyone asks her anything inappropriate, I'm pulling her off stage." Agreed. The press conference happened on a Tuesday. Emma wore a clean pair of jeans and a t-shirt that said "Future Engineer" in block letters, a gift from Rachel. Her glasses had new frames, courtesy of the dental and vision plan that came with her Ethereon partnership. She looked like any other kid, except for the fact that she was standing behind a podium with 50 journalists staring at her. "Hi," she said into the microphone. "My name is Emma Mercer. I'm 7, and I built something I think can help people." No script, no teleprompter. Vivian had offered both, and Emma had refused. She explained the emergency energy cell in language that was simple enough for non-engineers but precise enough to impress the technical journalists. She demonstrated the production prototype, sleeker than the original, housed in a carbon fiber casing with improved efficiency and a cleaner power output. Then she turned it on and used it to charge a dead cell phone in under 30 seconds. The room erupted in questions. "How long did it take you to develop?" "About 8 months, including the 14 prototypes that didn't work." "What's the potential output capacity?" "The current prototype generates about 12 watts continuous. Dr. Okonkwo thinks we can get it to 50 with the next iteration." "Do you have any corporate sponsors?" "Ethereon Industries is providing lab access and materials, but the design is mine, and the patent is in my name." "How does it feel to be the youngest inventor to file for an international patent?" Emma thought about this. "Scary, but good scary. Like when you're on a roller coaster and you can see the drop coming." That got a laugh. Even Vivian, standing off to the side with her arms crossed, cracked something that might have been a smile. A reporter in the back raised his hand. "Emma, there's been speculation that the Department of Defense is interested in your technology for military applications. Do you have any comment on that?" The room went quiet. Cole felt his muscles tense. Emma looked at the reporter. "I built this to help people. I don't want it used to hurt anyone."
but you can't control how a technology is used once it's sold. I'm not selling it. I'm developing it, and I get to decide what it's used for. That's what the patent means. The reporter opened his mouth to follow up, but Vivian stepped forward. We have time for 2 more questions, she said, and the conversation moved on. Afterward, Cole found Emma sitting on the floor behind the stage, eating a granola bar and looking exhausted. You did good, he said. The military question was hard. You handled it. But he's right, isn't he? Once something exists, you can't always control what people do with it. Cole sat down beside her. The floor was cold and uncomfortable. No, you can't. But you can build things with intention. You can put safeguards in place. You can choose who you work with and what deals you make. That's not total control, but it's not nothing either. What if someone just copies it? That's what patents are for. But what if they don't care about patents? What if they just take it? Cole didn't have a good answer for that. Because the truth was, powerful enough entities could circumvent any legal protection. They could reverse engineer. They could hire engineers to create similar devices without technically infringing on the patent. They could pressure foreign governments to ignore intellectual property laws. We'll deal with that if it happens, Cole said. One problem at a time. The press conference generated more attention than anyone anticipated. Within 48 hours, Emma's story had been covered by every major news outlet. Her face was on magazine covers. Her name was trending on social media. People were calling her everything from the girl who saved the lights to the next great American inventor. Cole hated it. He hated the way strangers showed up at their house wanting autographs. Hated the way parents at Emma's school either treated him like a celebrity or avoided him entirely. Hated the way his inbox overflowed with partnership offers, interview requests, and threatening letters from lawyers representing companies he'd never heard of. But most of all, he hated the way Emma started checking over her shoulder everywhere they went. I keep feeling like someone's watching, she told him one night while he was making dinner. Nobody's watching. Then why is there a car parked across the street that wasn't there before? Cole looked. There was a car, different from the black sedan. This one was silver, tinted windows. No plates visible from this angle. He grabbed his jacket. Stay inside. Dad, stay inside. Cole walked across the street in the fading light, his heart hammering. As he approached the silver car, the engine started. By the time he reached the curb, it was pulling away, moving fast but not recklessly, disappearing around the corner before he could see the driver. He stood there for a moment, breathing hard, feeling foolish and scared at the same time. When he went back inside, Emma was standing at the window. Who was it? She asked. I don't know, probably nothing. You're lying. Yeah, Cole admitted. I am. He called Vivian that night. I need security at my house, he said without preamble. Not for me. For Emma. What happened? He told her about the car, about the voicemails, about the unnamed visitor at the lab and the emails from lawyers, about the feeling he couldn't shake that someone was watching his daughter like she was an asset to be acquired. Vivian was quiet for a long time. I'll have a team there in the morning, she said finally. I can't afford private security. You're not paying for it. This is Etherion's responsibility. We put Emma in the spotlight. We made her a target. The least we can do is keep her safe. I don't like owing you. You don't owe me anything. This isn't charity. It's accountability. Cole almost argued, but the truth was he was out of his depth. He could fix a broken generator. He could raise a brilliant kid on his own. He couldn't fight this kind of people who sent unmarked cars to watch 7-year-olds. The security team arrived the next morning, 2 men and a woman in plain clothes driving a regular SUV looking like neighbors instead of bodyguards. They introduced themselves to Emma, showed her their badges, and explained that they were going to be nearby for a while. Emma, being Emma, immediately asked them about their communication equipment. Is that a 2-way radio or a cellular repeater? She asked, pointing at a device on one guard's belt. Modified radio, the guard said, looking slightly thrown. Encrypted channel. What frequency? That's classified, Miss Mercer. But I could figure it out if I had... Emma, Cole interrupted, let the nice people do their job. Life settled into something resembling routine, though routine with security guards felt like a contradiction. Emma went to the lab 3 days a week, school the other 2, and spent her evenings at home building things at the workbench Cole had set up in the garage.
The production prototype was nearly finished. Dr. Okonkwo estimated 2 more weeks before it was ready for formal testing. If the tests went well, they could begin manufacturing within 6 months. 6 months. The idea of Emma's invention being mass-produced seemed impossible, but so had everything else that had happened. Cole was in the garage one evening watching Emma work when Vivian showed up unannounced. She stood in the driveway looking at the house with an expression that might have been curiosity or judgment or something else entirely. She was wearing a suit again, back to armor, but her shoulders were less rigid than before. "I didn't know you lived here," she said. "Where did you think I lived?" "I don't know. I guess I didn't think about it." That was honest, at least. Cole appreciated honesty, even when it was unflattering. "Come in," he said. "Emma's in the garage." Vivian followed him through the house, and Cole watched her take in the details: the peeling wallpaper, the worn carpet, the refrigerator that hummed too loud, the dining table that wobbled on one leg, the photos on the wall. Emma as a baby, Cole and Sarah's wedding, Emma's first day of school. Vivian stopped at the wedding photo. "Your wife?" she asked. "Sarah. She passed 3 years ago." "I'm sorry." "Thank you." Vivian studied the photo for another moment. Sarah had been laughing in it, mouth open, eyes squeezed shut, one hand holding her veil against the wind. It was Cole's favorite picture of her because it captured exactly who she was. Someone who laughed with her whole body and didn't care what she looked like doing it. "She looks kind," Vivian said quietly. She was. She was also stubborn and messy and terrible at cooking, but kind, yeah. Always kind. They found Emma in the garage, hunched over her workbench with a magnifying glass and a pair of tweezers, adjusting something on the prototype circuit board. "Hey, Vivian," Emma said without looking up. "Come look at this." Vivian moved closer, peering over Emma's shoulder. "What am I looking at?" "I redesigned the voltage regulator. The old one was losing about 15% efficiency during conversion. I replaced the linear regulator with a switching topology, and now I'm only losing about 4%. That's a significant improvement. Dr. Okonkwo suggested it, but I modified her design because her version created too much electromagnetic interference. My solution uses a shielded inductor and a filter capacitor to clean the output." "That's clever. How did you figure that out?" "Trial and error. I built 6 different versions before this one worked." Vivian pulled up a stool and sat down, and for the next hour she and Emma talked about circuit design like colleagues. Cole made coffee and brought it out, then sat on an overturned bucket and listened to his daughter discuss things he barely understood with a woman who ran a Fortune 500 company. It should have felt strange. It didn't. At some point, Emma went inside to use the bathroom, leaving Cole and Vivian alone in the garage. "She's remarkable," Vivian said. "I know. No, I mean, she's not just smart. She's adaptable. She learns from failure instead of being defeated by it. That's rare in adults. In a child, it's almost unheard of. She gets that from her mother." "Does she?" Sarah was an engineer, got her degree while working 2 jobs. She didn't quit when things got hard. She just found a different angle. Vivian was quiet for a moment. "I quit when things got hard. When my father took credit for my work, I didn't fight him. I just decided I'd never let anyone get close enough to do it again. That's why I built Ethereum the way I did. Cold, controlled, nobody trusted, nobody in a position to betray me." "How's that working out?" Vivian almost laughed. "Poorly. Obviously." "So change it." "I'm trying, but changing a company is easier than changing yourself. I can rewrite policies and hire better people and create new programs. I can't rewrite 30 years of believing that vulnerability is weakness." Cole understood that. He'd spent 3 years after Sarah's death building walls of his own, telling himself that keeping Emma safe meant keeping the world out, that strength meant handling everything alone. "I used to think the same thing," he said. "Then Emma built something in our garage that brought a CEO to her knees, and I realized I couldn't do this by myself anymore." Is that an insult or a compliment? Both, probably. They looked at each other, and something passed between them. Not romantic, not exactly. More like recognition. 2 people who'd been hurt by the world and built different kinds of armor to survive it, both starting to wonder what would happen if they took some of it off. Emma came back, and the moment passed. The following week brought trouble. Cole received a formal letter from the Department of Defense requesting a meeting to discuss potential applications of the emergency energy cell for national security purposes. The language was polite but firm, and the letterhead was intimidating enough to make Cole's hands shake. He showed it to Vivian. "Don't respond," she said immediately. "What if they show up?" "They won't show up without warning. That's not how the DoD operates. They send letters, then they send representatives, then they apply pressure through legal and legislative channels. We have time. Time for what? Time to build a wall they can't climb over. I'm bringing in our International IP Council. We're going to file in every major market simultaneously: EU, Japan, South Korea, Australia, Canada. Once the patent is international, the DoD can't quietly acquire it through domestic legal pressure. They'd have to negotiate. And if they won't negotiate, then they'll have to explain to Congress why they're trying to steal technology from a 7-year-old girl. Even Washington has limits on what it can stomach publicly. But the DoD letter wasn't the only problem. 3 days later, Cole got a phone call from a man who identified himself as Gerald Whitfield, a senior partner at a law firm that represented defense contractors. "Mr. Mercer, I'm calling on behalf of clients who are very interested in your daughter's work. We'd like to discuss a licensing arrangement that would be extremely generous." "I'm not interested. The offer starts at $15 million, with royalties." Cole's mouth went dry. $15 million. That was a number he couldn't even picture. It was the kind of money that meant Emma would never worry about glasses held together with tape, or dresses that were too small, or a house with peeling wallpaper. "Who are your clients?" he asked. "I'm not at liberty to disclose that at this stage, but I can assure you they're legitimate, well-established defense industry partners with a track record of ethical collaboration." "If they're ethical, why can't you tell me who they are?" Silence. "Mr. Mercer, this is a limited-time offer. My clients are prepared to move quickly, and they're very motivated. If you decline, they'll pursue other avenues." "What other avenues?" "Legal ones. They believe there are legitimate questions about whether a minor can hold an international patent without a corporate trustee. Their legal team is prepared to challenge the filing if necessary." Cole felt anger rising in his chest. "Are you threatening my daughter?" "I'm informing you of the legal landscape. Take the offer, Mr. Mercer. It's better than the alternative." Cole hung up and immediately called Vivian. "They're making moves," he said, and told her about the call. Vivian was quiet for exactly 2 seconds. "Gerald Whitfield. I know him. He represents Orion Defense Systems. They've been trying to get into the emergency power market for years. If they're offering $15 million, the technology is worth at least 10 times that." "What do I do?" "Nothing. You do nothing. I'll handle Whitfield. And I'll make sure the patent filings are bulletproof. They're bluffing about the minor holding patent challenge. There's precedent dating back decades, but they'll keep pushing because that's what people like Whitfield do." "I can't keep putting Emma through this. Emma doesn't need to know about any of it. This is business. It's ugly and aggressive, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. But I've been fighting people like Whitfield my entire career. I know how they operate, and I know how to beat them." "Why are you doing this?" Cole asked. The question came out rougher than he intended. "Why are you fighting this hard for us?" "Because I spent years being the person on the other end of that phone call. I was the one making threats and applying pressure and using legal intimidation to get what I wanted. I was Gerald Whitfield in a better suit." Vivian paused. "I'm trying to be something different now. I don't know if I'm succeeding, but I'm trying." Cole believed her. That was the strange part. Despite everything, despite the gala, despite the humiliation, despite the culture of corruption she'd presided over, he believed that Vivian Hale was genuinely trying to be better. Whether trying was enough remained to be seen. Over the following days, the pressure intensified. More calls from law firms. More emails from defense contractors. A congressional aide contacted Cole to request a meeting, saying that certain committee members were interested in the technology's implications for national security. Cole stopped answering his phone entirely. Vivian's legal team handled everything, but the stress was eating at him. He wasn't sleeping. He was snapping at Emma over small things, leaving her shoes in the hallway, forgetting to turn off the bathroom light. He felt like a man standing in front of a wave he couldn't stop. Emma noticed. "You're upset," she said one evening while they were eating dinner, frozen pizza because Cole was too tired to cook. "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You haven't been fine for a week. Is it because of the people who want my invention?" Cole put down his pizza. "How do you know about that?" "I heard you on the phone with Vivian. You weren't being very quiet." "You shouldn't have been listening." "I live here, Dad. The walls aren't that thick." He almost laughed. "You're too smart for your own good." "That's what Mom used to say." The mention of Sarah hit Cole like a punch. Not because it hurt, it always hurt, but because Emma said it so casually, like mentioning the weather. She was getting older. The memories of her mother were becoming facts instead of feelings. "Your mom would have handled this better than me," Cole said. "Maybe, but she's not here. And you are. And you're doing okay." "I'm doing terrible." "You're doing okay," Emma repeated firmly. "But you should let Vivian help more. You keep trying to do everything yourself and it's making you cranky." "I'm not cranky." "You yelled at me yesterday because I left a screwdriver on the kitchen counter." "That's a safety hazard." "It's a Phillips head, not a chainsaw." Cole looked at his daughter, 7 years old, covered in pizza sauce, wearing mismatched socks, telling him to accept help with the kind of directness most adults couldn't manage. "When did you get so wise?" he asked. "I've always been wise. You just don't listen." He called Vivian the next morning and told her he needed help. Not just legal help, not just security. He needed someone to manage the incoming pressure so he could focus on being Emma's father instead of her crisis manager. Vivian assigned Rachel as the primary liaison. Rachel would handle all external communications, legal correspondence, and media inquiries. She would filter everything so that only critical decisions reached Cole, and even those would come with clear options and recommendations. It was the first time in 3 years that Cole had let someone share the weight, and the relief was so intense it almost made him sick. That night, for the first time in weeks, he slept through until morning. Emma's production prototype passed its first round of formal testing 2 days later. The results exceeded expectations. Power output was stable at 47 watts, just shy of the 50-watt target, but more than enough for emergency applications. The device could run continuously for 72 hours without degradation. It worked indoors, outdoors, in rural areas and urban environments. The only limitation was range. It needed to be within about 500 meters of some electromagnetic source to function at peak capacity. Dr. Okonkwo called it the most significant advance in distributed emergency power in 20 years. Vivian called it worth fighting for. Emma called it version 15. The formal testing generated a technical report that Vivian's team submitted to the International Patent Office, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and patent authorities in 12 other countries. The filing was accompanied by a public statement from Ethereum Industries acknowledging Emma's sole inventorship and Ethereum's role as a development partner, not an owner. The statement was picked up by every major news outlet. Within hours, the story had shifted from girl inventor to girl inventor versus the military-industrial complex. Commentators debated whether a child should be allowed to hold patents on technology with national security implications. Legal scholars weighed in on the precedent. Talk show hosts invited Cole onto their programs, which he declined. Through it all, Emma kept building. She spent her lab days working on the next iteration, version 16, which she believed could break the 50-watt barrier and extend the operational range to over a kilometer. She spent her school days being a normal second grader, except for the security guard who sat in an unmarked car in the school parking lot. She spent her evenings in the garage, tinkering, failing, adjusting, trying again. Cole watched her and wondered how long this could last. How long before the pressure cracked something? How long before someone with enough power decided that a 7-year-old's patent rights were less important than national security interests? How long before the world took something else from him? He was sitting in the garage one evening, watching Emma solder, when his phone buzzed with a text from Vivian. "Can you meet me tomorrow? Not at the office, somewhere private. I need to tell you something and I don't want anyone else to hear it first." Cole stared at the message for a long time. "Okay," he typed back. "Name the place." They met at a diner on the outskirts of town, the kind of place where the coffee was bad and the booths were sticky and nobody cared who you were. Vivian looked wrong sitting there, like a painting hung in the wrong room. Her suit was out of place against the vinyl seats and laminated menus. She ordered black coffee and didn't touch it. The DoD formally requested a briefing on Emma's technology, she said. Through official channels this time, not through contractors or lawyers. Through the secretary's office. Cole felt the floor shift under him. What does that mean? It means they're done being indirect. They want a formal presentation of the technology, including classified specifications, performance data, and potential military applications. If we refuse, they can invoke national security provisions that would give them legal authority to seize the patent. They can do that? There are mechanisms. They're rarely used, and they're politically explosive, but they exist. If the government determines that a technology is critical to national defense, they can essentially force a licensing agreement on terms they dictate. So everything we've done, the patents, the filings, the press conference, none of it matters? It all matters. It makes seizing the patent politically costly. It makes the story public enough that they can't do it quietly. But it doesn't make it impossible. Cole stared at his coffee. It was terrible, but he drank it anyway because his mouth was dry and his hands needed something to hold. What are our options? He asked. Vivian laid them out. They could comply with the briefing request and try to negotiate terms that protected Emma's rights. They could refuse and prepare for a legal battle that could take years. They could go public with the DoD's pressure and try to create enough political backlash to force a retreat. Or they could find a way to make the technology available for humanitarian purposes in a way that made military seizure unnecessary. There's a fifth option, Cole said. What? We give it away. Vivian stared at him. Excuse me? We open source the design, make the specifications public. Let anyone build it. If the technology is freely available, there's nothing to seize. The military can use it, but so can everyone else. Hospitals, disaster relief organizations, remote communities. Everyone. That would destroy the commercial value. I know. Emma's patent would be worthless. The patent, yeah. But the idea would be everywhere, in every country, in every village that doesn't have reliable power. That's what Emma wanted. That's why she built it. Vivian was silent for a long time. Her coffee was getting cold. Outside, a truck rumbled past the diner, rattling the windows. You'd walk away from hundreds of millions of dollars, she said finally. I'd walk away from a fight I can't win. And I'd give my daughter something better than money. I'd give her the knowledge that her invention is actually helping people, right now, everywhere, without some corporation or government controlling who gets to use it. Cole, you live in a house with peeling wallpaper. Your daughter wears glasses held together with tape. You could change your entire life. My life is fine. My daughter is fine. We don't need hundreds of millions of dollars. We need to be able to sleep at night knowing we did the right thing. Vivian looked at him like she was seeing something she didn't understand, like he'd spoken in a language she hadn't learned yet. Let me think about it, she said. Take your time, but not too much time. The DoD isn't going to wait forever. They sat in the diner for another 20 minutes, not talking, just drinking bad coffee and thinking about what it meant to give something away that the whole world wanted to own. Show more, Cole didn't sleep the night after the diner. He lay in bed running the numbers in his head, not the financial ones, because those were too big to comprehend, but the human ones. How many families and how many countries didn't have reliable power? How many hospitals ran on generators that failed? How many kids did homework by candlelight or kerosene lamps that burned their houses down? How many lives Emma's invention could change if it belonged to everyone instead of one company or one government? And then the other numbers. The ones that mattered in the small, private way that nobody writes articles about. The cost of Emma's new glasses, the repair bill for the truck's transmission, the mortgage payment that was always a week late, the fact that he'd been wearing the same boots for 4 years because new ones cost $120 he didn't have. Giving away the technology meant giving away financial security for Emma's entire life. It meant choosing principle over comfort. It meant betting that doing the right thing would somehow work out, even though Cole had lived long enough to know that doing the right thing and things working out were two separate events that didn't always happen together. He got up at 3 a.m. and went to the garage. Emma's workbench was exactly as she'd left it, the production prototype sitting under a work lamp, surrounded by notes and sketches and a half-eaten bag of gummy bears. Cole picked up the device. It weighed less than a pound. Such a small thing to cause so much trouble. He thought about what Vivian had said at the diner, about walking away from hundreds of millions, about peeling wallpaper and taped glasses, and the kind of poverty that rich people noticed but couldn't understand. Then he thought about Sarah. She would have given it away. He knew that with absolute certainty. Sarah had been the kind of person who brought soup to neighbors she barely knew, who spent her weekends volunteering at the free clinic, who once gave her winter coat to a stranger at a bus stop and walked home in the cold because she said the stranger needed it more. "It's just a coat," she'd told Cole when he asked why. She was freezing. "You're freezing now, but I have a house to go home to." She doesn't. That had been Sarah's logic, simple, stubborn, impossible to argue with. You gave what you had to the people who needed it because that's what people did. Not because it was strategic or profitable or good PR, because it was right. Cole put the device back on the workbench and went to make coffee. By the time Emma woke up at 7, he'd made his decision. "I need to talk to you about something important," he said over breakfast. Emma looked up from her cereal. "Is this about the military people?" "Sort of. It's about your invention." "What about it?" Cole chose his words carefully. "There are people, powerful people, government people, corporate people, who want to own your technology. They want to control who uses it and how. Some of them are offering a lot of money. Some of them are threatening legal action, and it's going to keep getting worse." "I know all this, Dad. I know you know, but here's the part I haven't told you. There's a way to make it all stop. All the threats, all the pressure, all the phone calls from lawyers." "How?" "We give it away. We make the design public. We let anyone in the world build their own version for free. Once it's open source, there's nothing to fight over. Nobody can own what everybody has." Emma put down her spoon. Her expression was hard to read. Not upset, not excited, just focused. The way she looked when she was evaluating a circuit design. "If we give it away, we don't get paid," she said. "No." "We don't get the $15 million. "No." "We stay in this house with the wobbly table." "Yeah." Emma thought about this for a long time. Long enough that her cereal got soggy. "Can I ask you something?" she said finally. "Always." "Why did I build it?" Cole blinked. "What?" "Why did I build the emergency energy cell? What was the reason?" "To help people who don't have power." "Right. And if we sell it to the military or some corporation, do those people get helped?" "Some of them, eventually. Maybe. But if we give it away, everyone gets helped. Right now. For free." "That's the idea." Emma nodded slowly. "Then why are we even talking about this?" Cole looked at his daughter. 8 years old. She'd turned 8 2 weeks ago. Though in the chaos of everything, the birthday party had been just the two of them eating cake in the garage. 8 years old and making decisions that would baffle most adults. "Because it's a big choice," Cole said, "and it affects your whole life. You deserve to make it yourself." "I just made it. Give it away." "You're sure?" "Dad, I built it so people wouldn't be scared in the dark. If I keep it for myself, then I'm the one keeping them in the dark. That's worse than being poor." Cole's eyes burned. He blinked hard and looked at the ceiling. "Your mother would be so proud of you," he said. "I know," Emma said simply. Then she picked up her spoon and went back to her soggy cereal. Cole called Vivian an hour later. "We're doing it," he said. "Open source, everything." There was a pause. "You talked to Emma?" "She made the decision faster than I did." "Of course she did." Another pause. "Cole, I need you to understand what this means for Ethereum. The board will fight me on this. They'll say I'm destroying shareholder value. They might try to remove me." "Can they?" "They can try. I own enough shares to make it difficult, but not impossible. If enough institutional investors side with the board, they could force a vote." "So you're risking your company." "I'm risking my position. The company will survive. It might even be better for it in the long run. The goodwill alone could be worth more than the licensing revenue. But that's a long-term bet, and boards don't like long-term bets." "Are you asking me to change my mind?" "No. I'm asking you to understand that I'm choosing this too." Not just supporting your decision, choosing it. Because you're right. Because Emma's right. Because I've spent my entire career making the wrong choice for the right reasons, and I'm tired of it. They spent the rest of the day planning. Vivian brought in her communications team, her legal team, and Rachel. They drafted the open source release framework, the public statement, the licensing terms that would ensure the technology remained free while protecting against anyone trying to patent a derivative design and lock others out. Rachel coordinated with international organizations, the Red Cross, Doctors Without Borders, UNICEF, to ensure that the release included practical building guides and materials lists accessible to communities with limited resources. Dr. Okonkwo prepared a technical brief that broke down the design into modular components, each of which could be built independently and assembled without specialized equipment. Emma sat in on every meeting. She asked questions that adults had missed. She pointed out that the building guide assumed access to a soldering iron, which many communities wouldn't have, and suggested alternative connection methods using conductive adhesive and mechanical crimping. "You're thinking like an engineer," Dr. Okonkwo told her. "I am an engineer," Emma said. The announcement was scheduled for Friday morning. Vivian would make it from Etherion's headquarters, with Emma joining via video link from home because Cole didn't want her in the building if the board situation turned hostile. Thursday night, Cole couldn't sleep again. He got up at 2 a.m. and found Emma already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with a notebook. "What are you doing up?" he asked. "Writing a letter." "To who?" "To the people who are going to build my invention. I want them to know why I made it." Cole sat down across from her. "Can I read it?" Emma slid the notebook over. Her handwriting was messy. She'd always written too fast for her hand to keep up with her brain. The letter was simple. It said that she'd built the emergency energy cell because her mom used to say that everyone deserves to feel safe, and feeling safe starts with having light when it's dark. She said she was giving the design away because her mom also used to say that helping people isn't something you do for money, it's something you do because you can. She said she hoped that whoever built a version of her invention would think about the people who needed it most, and make sure those people got one first. She signed it Emma Mercer, age 8, inventor. Cole put the notebook down and pressed his hands flat on the table because they were shaking. "That's perfect," he said. "It's not perfect. I spelled electromagnetic wrong. Nobody's going to care about that. I care. I'm going to fix it." She took the notebook back and erased the word carefully, rewrote it, and then put the pencil down with the satisfaction of someone who'd solved a problem. "Dad?" "Yeah?" "Are you scared about tomorrow?" "Terrified." "Me too." She paused. "But good terrified. Like the roller coaster." "Yeah, like the roller coaster." Friday morning arrived gray and overcast. Cole made breakfast, eggs and toast, nothing fancy, and they ate in the kitchen while watching the sunrise try to break through the clouds. At 9 a.m., Vivian appeared on Cole's laptop screen from the Etherion boardroom. She looked like she'd been awake all night, which she probably had. Behind her, Cole could see the board members seated around the conference table, some of them visibly angry. "Before we go live," Vivian said, her voice slightly tinny through the speakers, "I want you both to know that whatever happens today, this is the right decision. I believe that. Even if the board fires me in an hour, I believe that." "They're not going to fire you," Cole said. "They might. Then you'll come work in our garage. Emma needs an assistant." Vivian almost smiled. "I'd be terrible at it. You'd be adequate. We have low standards." That got a real smile. Brief, but real. The press conference went live at 9:30. Vivian stood at the podium in the Etherion boardroom, flanked by the company logo and a screen showing Emma's face via video link. "Good morning," Vivian said. "I'm here to announce that Etherion Industries, in partnership with inventor Emma Mercer, is releasing the complete design specifications for the emergency energy cell as open source technology, effective immediately. This means that anyone, anywhere in the world, can build, modify, and distribute this technology without cost or restriction." The room erupted. Board members who'd been told about the decision only minutes before started shouting. Journalists began firing questions. Camera flashes popped. Vivian held up one hand and the room went quiet. She still had that power, the ability to silence a room with a gesture. I understand this decision is controversial. I understand that it will cost this company significant revenue. I understand that some members of my board disagree strongly, and they will have an opportunity to express that disagreement through proper governance channels. She paused and looked directly into the camera. But here's what I also understand. This technology was invented by an 8-year-old girl who wanted to help people who were scared in the dark. She didn't build it for profit. She didn't build it for military contracts. She built it because she believed that everyone deserves to feel safe. And she's right. Vivian turned to the screen showing Emma's face. Emma, would you like to say something? Emma was sitting at the kitchen table in her pajamas because Cole had forgotten to tell her to change. Her glasses were slightly crooked. Her hair was a mess. She looked exactly like what she was, a kid who'd been eating breakfast 5 minutes ago. Hi, she said. I just wanted to say that this is my invention, and I'm giving it away because I want everyone to have it. My mom used to say that the best thing you can do with something good is share it, so that's what I'm doing. She held up her notebook. I wrote a letter for everyone who builds one. It's going to be on the website. I hope you read it. Then she waved at the camera and turned to Cole. Can I go finish my eggs? Cole nodded, trying not to laugh and cry at the same time. The board meeting that followed the press conference was, by all accounts, brutal. 3 members immediately called for a vote of no confidence in Vivian's leadership. 2 others threatened to resign. The chief financial officer presented projections showing the revenue impact of the open source decision and said, in front of everyone, that Vivian had lost her mind. Vivian listened to all of it without interrupting. When they finished, she stood up and spoke for exactly 4 minutes. She talked about the company's founding mission, about the culture of corruption that had grown under her watch, about the children whose inventions had been stolen, about Marcus Brennan and every other kid who'd been used as a front for corporate theft. Then she talked about Emma. An 8-year-old girl just gave away something worth hundreds of millions of dollars because she thought it was the right thing to do, Vivian said. She didn't consult analysts. She didn't run projections. She asked herself one question. Did I build this to help people? The answer was yes. So she gave it away. Vivian looked around the table. I am asking every person in this room to consider whether they went into business to help people or to help themselves. Because this company is going to be one or the other, not both, not anymore. The vote of no confidence failed. Not unanimously, 4 board members voted against Vivian, but it failed. 3 of the 4 resigned within the week. The 4th stayed grudgingly because he owned too much stock to walk away. Cole heard about the vote from Rachel, who called him that evening, sounding exhausted and triumphant. She did it, Rachel said. She actually did it. She walked into that boardroom knowing they might fire her, and she did it anyway. Was it close? Closer than she'll admit, but she held. I've never seen her like this before. She's different. Not softer exactly. Just present. Like she finally decided to show up as herself instead of the character she's been playing for 15 years. People can change, Cole said. Can they? Or do they just get tired of pretending? Maybe those are the same thing. That evening Vivian called. Her voice was hoarse, the kind of hoarse that comes from arguing for hours. It's done, she said. The release goes live at midnight. The design files, the building guides, Emma's letter, all of it, free, worldwide. How are you feeling? Like I jumped off a cliff and I'm still falling. I don't know if there's a bottom yet. There's always a bottom. The question is whether you land on your feet. I've never been good at landing. Neither have I, but I've gotten good at getting back up. Vivian was quiet for a moment. Cole? Yeah? Thank you. For what? For being the kind of person who gives things away. I didn't know people like you existed until I met you. I thought everyone was playing the same game I was. Accumulate, protect, control. And then you walked onto my stage with a USB drive and a 7-year-old and blew up everything I thought I knew. She was 7 then. She's 8 now. That's your response? I'm trying to have a moment here. Sorry, go ahead. Have your moment. You ruined it. I tend to do that. They both laughed, and the sound was warm and tired and real,
The kind of laughter that happens between people who've been through something together and come out the other side still standing. At midnight, the emergency energy cell became open source. Cole sat in the garage with Emma, who'd insisted on staying up to watch the download counter go live on the website. They'd set up Cole's laptop on the workbench between a soldering iron and a jar of screws. The counter started at 0, then 1, then 12, then 100. By 1 a.m., it had passed 10,000. Emma watched the numbers climb with an expression Cole had never seen on her face before. Not pride exactly, not excitement, but something deeper, something that looked like peace. "Dad?" she said. "Yeah?" "I think Mom would have liked this." Cole put his arm around her. "I think she would have loved it." "Do you think she knows? Wherever she is?" Cole thought about this carefully. Not about whether Sarah could know. That was a question he'd given up trying to answer years ago. But about what Emma needed to hear. "I think the things we do for other people don't just disappear," he said. "I think they ripple. They reach places we can't see. And if your mom is anywhere, she's in those ripples, in the light that's going to turn on in some kid's room tonight because of what you built." Emma leaned into him. "That's a good answer." "I have my moments." They sat there watching the counter until Emma fell asleep against his shoulder. Cole carried her to bed, then went back to the garage and sat alone for a while. The download counter was at 47,000. He picked up Emma's prototype and held it. Such a small thing. Such an ordinary-looking device. Wires and circuits and capacitors and a casing that a kid had painted with stars. And somewhere out there, in places Cole would never visit and among people he would never meet, that small thing was about to start changing lives. Not because it was worth billions, not because it was a military asset, not because some corporation controlled it, because an 8-year-old girl had looked at the world and seen people sitting in the dark and decided to do something about it. Cole set the device back on the workbench. He turned off the lamp. He closed the garage door, and he went inside to sleep, finally, knowing that tomorrow would bring new problems and new challenges and new reasons to be afraid. But also knowing that somewhere, right now, someone was downloading his daughter's invention and thinking about building it, thinking about who needed it, thinking about the girl who gave it away because her mom taught her that good things are meant to be shared. The download counter hit 100,000 before sunrise. The open source announcement changed everything faster than anyone expected. Within 72 hours, the specifications for the emergency energy cell had been downloaded over 4 million times. Engineers in 38 countries began building their own versions using locally sourced materials. A team in rural Kenya assembled a working prototype in under a week using components from a recycled car battery and salvaged electronics. A hospital in Bangladesh used a modified version to power their neonatal unit during a cyclone that knocked out the regional grid for 6 days. A volunteer group in Appalachia built 12 units and distributed them to families living without reliable electricity. Emma tracked every story obsessively, sitting cross-legged on the living room floor with Cole's laptop, reading translated articles from countries she'd never heard of, and asking Cole to help her pronounce the names of villages where her invention was keeping lights on. "Dad, look at this one," she said, holding up the screen. "A school in Peru is using it to power their computers. They only have electricity 4 hours a day normally." Cole looked. The photo showed a classroom full of kids about Emma's age, grinning at the camera, sitting in front of glowing screens. In the corner of the photo, barely visible, was a device that looked almost exactly like Emma's prototype. Same basic shape, same wiring configuration, built from parts that probably cost less than $20. "That's your invention," Cole said. "That's everybody's invention now," Emma corrected. She was right, and something about the way she said it, casually, without regret, like it was the most obvious thing in the world, made Cole's throat tighten. The DoD backed off. Not publicly. They never issued a statement or acknowledged the pressure they'd applied. But the letters stopped. The phone calls stopped. Gerald Whitfield's firm sent a single email saying their clients were no longer pursuing acquisition and wished the Mercer family well. It read like a surrender note written by someone who'd never lost before and didn't know how to do it gracefully. Vivian called it the most expensive middle finger in corporate history. She was dealing with her own fallout.
The open source decision had cost Ethereum its projected revenue from the technology. Estimates range from $200 million to over $1 billion in licensing fees they'd never collect. The board was furious. 3 members resigned in protest. Stock prices dipped. Financial analysts wrote op-eds about how Vivian Hale had lost her edge, gone soft, made the worst business decision in the company's history. Vivian didn't care. Or rather, she cared but chose not to let it change anything. They can fire me if they want, she told Cole during one of their phone calls, which had become a near-daily occurrence. I own enough shares to make that extremely expensive, and I'm not selling. Are you worried? About the board? No. About whether this was the right decision? Every single day. Is that healthy? Probably not, but it keeps me honest. The incubation program Vivian had promised launched 6 weeks after the open source release. It was called the Mercer Initiative, over Cole's objections, which Vivian overruled by pointing out that naming it after Emma would protect it from future boards who might try to defund it. If it's got a face and a story, it's harder to kill, she said. That's just PR reality. The program accepted its first cohort of 20 young inventors, all from families earning below the poverty line. Each received full funding for their projects, mentorship from Ethereum engineers, legal support for patent filings, and a guaranteed stipend that covered living expenses for their families during the development process. Rachel Chen ran it. She'd left her R&D position to manage the initiative full-time, and she threw herself into it with the kind of intensity that Cole recognized from watching Sarah work. Rachel had found her thing, the work that made the rest of life make sense. Emma, meanwhile, had moved on. Not from inventing. She'd never stop inventing, but from the emergency energy cell specifically. Version 16 was done, 53 watts, stable, with an operational range of nearly 2 kilometers. The open source community had taken the design further than Emma could have alone, iterating and improving in dozens of directions simultaneously. She didn't need to carry it anymore. Instead, she started working on something new, something she wouldn't tell Cole about. It's a surprise, she said whenever he asked, covering her workbench with a sheet whenever he walked into the garage. Should I be worried? Only if you don't like surprises. Cole pretended to be suspicious, but secretly loved that she was excited about something again. For weeks after the gala, after the threats, after the stress of the DoD situation, Emma had been tense and watchful, checking windows, flinching at car doors, sleeping with the light on. She'd started having nightmares about people breaking into the house and taking her inventions. A therapist that Rachel recommended had helped, so had time. But what helped most was the open source decision, the moment Emma realized that nobody could steal something she'd already given away. The nightmares stopped almost immediately. Cole thought about that a lot, about how the thing that made Emma feel safest wasn't a security system or a locked door or a legal team. It was generosity. The act of letting go had freed her in a way that holding on never could. He wished he could apply that lesson to his own life as easily. Because the truth was, Cole was struggling. Not financially. The partnership with Ethereum covered their expenses, and the recognition Emma had received opened doors he'd never expected. But emotionally. The last few months had cracked him open in ways he hadn't anticipated, and the person he'd been before the gala, the quiet repairman who kept his head down and his world small, that person didn't exist anymore. He missed that person sometimes, missed the simplicity, missed the clarity of a life built around 2 things: fix what's broken and protect your kid. Now everything was complicated. The legal situation, the public attention, the relationship with Vivian, which had evolved from adversarial to professional to something he didn't have a name for. She called him almost every evening now, sometimes about business, sometimes about Emma, sometimes about nothing. Just to talk. I fired another board member today, she said one night. Cole was sitting on the porch watching fireflies blink in the backyard. For what? For suggesting we should have kept the patent and licensed it exclusively to the military. You fired someone for having an opinion? I fired someone for having that opinion in a meeting where we were discussing the Mercer Initiative's budget. The implication was clear. Why are we spending money protecting children's inventions when we could be selling one child's invention to the highest bidder? That's an ugly opinion. It's a profitable one. That's what makes it ugly. They were quiet for a moment. The fireflies pulsed in the darkness.
Vivian? Yeah? Why do you keep calling me? More quiet. Cole could hear her breathing. Because you're the only person in my life who tells me the truth without an agenda, she said. Everyone else wants something. My board wants profit. My lawyers want billable hours. My employees want job security. You just want your daughter to be okay, and that's, I don't know. It's refreshing. That's a lonely reason to call someone. I'm a lonely person, Cole. I've been lonely for a very long time. I just didn't know it until recently. He didn't know what to say to that, so he said the only thing that felt true. You don't have to be. There was a long pause. I don't know how to not be, Vivian said, and her voice was different, smaller, less controlled, the voice of someone who'd taken off their armor and found they didn't know how to stand without it. You could start by coming over for dinner, Cole said. Emma has been asking about you. Emma asks about me? She wanted to know if you've ever built a circuit board for fun. She thinks you're too serious and need a hobby. Vivian laughed, a real laugh, not the sharp, controlled sound she used in meetings. She might be right. She's usually right. It's annoying. What would we eat? Whatever I can find in the freezer. Probably pasta. I'm not a good cook. I'm worse. Then we'll both be terrible together. The dinner happened 2 days later, on a Saturday evening. Vivian showed up in jeans and a plain white t-shirt, the most casual Cole had ever seen her. She brought a bottle of wine that probably cost more than his monthly grocery budget and a children's engineering book for Emma that she'd clearly spent time choosing. Emma opened the door and immediately noticed Vivian's outfit. You look normal, she said. Is that a compliment? It's an observation. Come in. Dad's burning the garlic bread. Cole was, in fact, burning the garlic bread. He rescued it with minimal damage and served dinner at the wobbling table. The pasta was overcooked. The salad was just lettuce and tomatoes. The garlic bread was slightly charred. Vivian ate everything without complaint. They talked about things that had nothing to do with patents or corporations or the military. Emma told Vivian about her school friends and her favorite teacher and the book she was reading about marine biology. Vivian talked about a documentary she'd watched about deep-sea creatures. Cole told a story about fixing a generator for a farmer whose cow had knocked it over, and how the cow had tried to eat his toolbox. It was the most normal evening Cole had experienced in months. And watching Vivian sit at his kitchen table, laughing at a cow story, asking Emma about octopuses, he realized something that scared him. He liked her. Not the CEO, not the corporate titan, not the woman who'd humiliated his daughter on a stage. He liked Vivian, the person who showed up in jeans, who ate burnt garlic bread, who admitted to being lonely, who was trying to become someone better, even though she didn't know how. He liked her, and that was terrifying, because the last person he'd liked this way had been Sarah. After dinner, Emma dragged Vivian to the garage to show her the secret project. Cole wasn't invited. Dad, go away, it's a surprise. So he washed dishes and tried not to think about what was happening in his chest. They came back 20 minutes later. Vivian's expression was strange, soft and open and slightly stunned. What did she show you? Cole asked. It's a surprise, Vivian and Emma said simultaneously, then looked at each other and laughed. Vivian left around 9. Cole walked her to her car, a sleek black thing that looked wildly out of place in his driveway. Thank you for dinner, she said. It was terrible. It was perfect. Nothing's perfect. Vivian looked at him. The porch light caught her face, and for the first time Cole noticed that she had freckles, faint ones, usually hidden under makeup. They made her look younger, more real. You're right, she said. But it was good, and sometimes good is better than perfect. She drove away, and Cole stood in the driveway for a long time, watching the taillights disappear. The next morning, Emma told him about the surprise. It was a small device, smaller than the energy cell, about the size of a deck of cards. Emma called it a comfort light. It was powered by the same ambient energy technology as the cell, but designed for a single purpose, to glow softly in the dark. Warm white light, adjustable intensity, no batteries required. It's for kids who are scared at night, Emma said. Kids who don't have electricity, or kids whose parents can't afford nightlights.
You just set it near a window or a wall outlet or anywhere there's ambient electromagnetic energy, and it glows. Cole held it in his hand. It weighed almost nothing. The casing was smooth, painted with tiny stars that Emma had added with a fine-tip brush. "You made this for scared kids?" he asked. "I made it for me first, because I was having the nightmares." Then I thought, other kids probably have nightmares too. And if they live somewhere without electricity, they can't even turn on a light. Emma, this is, don't say amazing, don't say incredible, don't say any of those words. I was going to say thoughtful. Emma smiled. That's okay. You can say thoughtful. The comfort light was open-sourced immediately. Within a month, humanitarian organizations were distributing them in refugee camps, disaster zones, and rural communities without electrical infrastructure. They cost less than $3 to build. Emma didn't care about the numbers, she cared about the letters. They started arriving in the mail, handwritten letters from children all over the world, kids who'd received comfort lights and wanted to thank the girl who made them. Some letters were in English, others were in Spanish, Arabic, French, Swahili, languages Emma couldn't read but insisted on keeping anyway. One letter, from a girl in Syria, included a drawing of two children holding a glowing star between them. Emma taped it to her bedroom wall. "She's 8, Emma told Cole, holding the letter carefully. "She said she hasn't been scared at night since she got the light. She said it feels like having a friend." Cole couldn't speak for a moment. He just pulled Emma close and held her. Months passed. Ethereum rebuilt itself slowly, shedding the old guard and replacing them with people who actually believed in the mission Vivian was now articulating: technology for people, not just profit. It wasn't a painless transformation. Revenue dropped. Market share declined. Competitors circled. But the company survived, and what emerged was leaner and more honest than what had come before. Rachel expanded the Mercer initiative to include 40 young inventors across 3 countries. She traveled constantly, vetting applications, meeting families, setting up local partnerships with universities and NGOs. She called Cole every couple of weeks with updates that always ended the same way. "You have no idea how many Emmas are out there." Dr. Okonkwo published a peer-reviewed paper on the emergency energy cells technology, listing Emma as primary inventor and lead researcher. The paper was cited over 200 times in its first month. Universities began incorporating Emma's design principles into their engineering curricula. And Vivian kept coming to dinner. Not every week, sometimes every other week. Sometimes she'd show up unannounced on a Wednesday evening with takeout and a new engineering problem she wanted to discuss with Emma. She'd sit at the wobbly table and eat mediocre food and talk about things that had nothing to do with business. Cole watched the change in her with a mixture of admiration and caution. Vivian was softer now, not weak, never weak, but less armored. She laughed more easily. She admitted mistakes more readily. She asked questions instead of making declarations. But she was still Vivian Hale, still sharp, still capable of a coldness that could freeze a room. The difference was that she now chose when to deploy it instead of wearing it like a second skin. One evening, after Emma had gone to bed, Vivian and Cole sat on the porch drinking coffee. The sky was clear, and the stars were bright enough to cast faint shadows. "I've been thinking about something Emma said to me the first time I came here," Vivian said. "What did she say?" "She asked me if I'd ever built a circuit board for fun. I told her no. She looked at me like I'd told her I'd never eaten ice cream." Cole smiled. She has strong feelings about fun. "She asked me why I stopped building things. I told her I didn't remember stopping. I just woke up one day and realized I'd spent 20 years making decisions instead of making things." "Do you miss it?" "I didn't think so. But then I watched Emma work, and I realized I miss it desperately. The act of creating something with your hands, of solving a problem not because it's profitable, but because it's interesting, of failing and trying again, and feeling that specific kind of frustration that means you're getting closer. So build something. What? Anything. Build a circuit board. Build a birdhouse. Build a terrible piece of furniture that falls apart in a week. It doesn't matter what it is. Just build something." Vivian was quiet. Then she said, "Would Emma teach me? I know that sounds ridiculous. A 30-year-old CEO asking a 7-year-old for lessons." 8, Cole corrected. She turned 8 last month. "An 8-year-old then. She'd love it.
She keeps asking when you're coming back. Something shifted in Vivian's expression.
Cole could see it even in the dim porch light. A crack in something she'd been holding together, not falling apart, just finally letting something in. "I don't know how to do this," she said. "Do what?" "This. Whatever this is. I don't know how to be part of something without trying to control it. I don't know how to care about people without calculating the risk-reward. I don't know how to sit on someone's porch and drink bad coffee and feel—" She stopped. "Feel what?" "At home." Cole looked at her. This woman who'd built an empire on control and isolation, who'd spent her entire adult life proving she didn't need anyone, who'd humiliated his daughter in front of hundreds of people and then spent months trying to make it right. She wasn't perfect. She might never be. She was still learning how to be human in ways that most people figured out by the time they were 20. She still had sharp edges and blind spots and the kind of pride that could curdle into cruelty if she wasn't careful. But she was trying, and trying counted for something. "You are home," Cole said. "If you want to be." Vivian didn't answer, but she didn't leave either. The last scene happened on a night in late autumn, months after the gala, months after the arrests, months after the world had changed for all of them. Vivian's car pulled into Cole's driveway at 9 p.m. The house was lit from inside, warm yellow light spilling through the windows. The garage door was open, and the sound of a soldering iron humming drifted out into the cool evening air. She walked around to the garage and stopped in the doorway. Emma was sitting at her workbench, building something new. Her glasses, new ones with frames that actually fit, reflected the glow of her work lamp. Her hair was pulled back with a rubber band. Her tongue poked out slightly from the corner of her mouth, the way it always did when she was concentrating. Cole sat beside her on an overturned bucket, holding a flashlight at the angle she directed, passing her components when she asked, not talking, just being there. They hadn't noticed Vivian yet. She watched them for a long moment, father and daughter, working together in a garage that smelled like solder and old coffee and the faint chemical tang of flux. The workbench was cluttered with circuit boards and wire cutters and crumpled sketches and a half-eaten sandwich. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't impressive. There were no chandeliers, no marble floors, no giant screens displaying corporate logos. But it was real. And standing there in the doorway of a garage in a small town, watching a man hold a flashlight for his daughter while she tried to make the world a little better, Vivian Hale understood something she'd spent her entire life getting wrong. Power wasn't about control. It wasn't about being the smartest person in the room or the most feared or the one who signed the biggest checks. Power was about what you were willing to give up, what you were willing to build without needing credit, what you were willing to love even when loving it meant losing the version of yourself you'd worked so hard to construct. Cole had given up money. Emma had given up ownership. Vivian was giving up the armor she'd worn for 30 years, and somehow, in all that giving up, they'd each ended up with more than they started with. Emma looked up and saw her. "Hey, Vivian, come look at this." Vivian walked over and looked at the circuit board on the workbench. "What is it?" "I don't know yet," Emma said, "but I think it's going to be good." Cole shifted over to make room. Vivian sat down on the edge of the bucket beside him, their shoulders touching. He didn't move away. Neither did she. Emma went back to soldering, humming quietly to herself. Outside, the stars were doing what they always did, burning silently in the dark, asking nothing, offering everything. And in a small garage in a small town, 3 people who'd been broken in different ways sat together and built something none of them could have built alone. Not a device, not a company, not a legacy. Something quieter than that. Something harder to name and easier to feel. The kind of thing that doesn't need a patent or a press conference or a federal investigation. The kind of thing that starts when someone holds a flashlight for someone else in the dark and doesn't ask for anything in return. The kind of love that survives loss, humiliation, and betrayal, and still chooses kindness anyway.